The air was crisp with the golden glow of an autumn afternoon in New York City, the kind of day when the city's chaotic charms seemed to slow down just enough for moments of reflection. The streets were alive as always, cars weaving through traffic, street vendors shouting their wares, and pedestrians rushing from one place to another. Yet, amid the city's usual din, the Grand Roosevelt Hotel stood like a fortress of elegance and history, commanding attention with its gilded facade. Inside the hotel, the mood was different, tense and expectant. The richly decorated conference hall buzzed with the activity of reporters setting up cameras, adjusting microphones, and shuffling through their notes. The chatter was low, but the air carried an undercurrent of excitement. Today was a rare occasion. Melania Trump, the former First Lady, was holding a press conference. Melania had become an enigma since leaving the White House. Her public appearances were few and far between, and she rarely granted interviews. Over the years, this silence had only fueled curiosity and speculation. Why had she chosen to retreat into privacy? What were her true feelings about the controversies surrounding her husband's presidency? And perhaps most pressing of all, what was Melania's story in her own words? The press room was packed with reporters from all corners of the media spectrum. Some were there with genuine curiosity, eager to learn about her latest initiative. Others, however, were armed with pointed questions, ready to seize any opportunity to challenge her narrative. Among them was James Corbin, a journalist notorious for his provocative style. Corbin had a reputation for asking the kind of questions that made his subjects squirm, and today, he was determined to do just that. When Melania entered the room, a hush fell over the crowd. She was poised and radiant, dressed in a tailored cream suit that exuded understated elegance. Her hair fell in soft waves over her shoulders, and her expression was serene yet commanding. There was a magnetic quality to her presence, one that demanded attention without effort. She stepped up to the podium, her movements deliberate and measured. The room was silent except for the clicking of cameras. As she began to speak, her voice carried a calm authority, with that familiar accent that had become instantly recognizable. "Good afternoon," she began, her eyes scanning the room. "Thank you all for being here today. It is my honor to announce the launch of the Serenity Foundation, an initiative that is deeply personal to me and one that I believe can make a real difference in the lives of children." Her words were carefully chosen, her tone steady and deliberate. She went on to outline the goals of the Serenity Foundation, providing mental health resources to children, creating safe spaces in schools, and fostering emotional intelligence. She spoke about the alarming rise in mental health issues among young people, her voice softening as she emphasized the importance of protecting the next generation. "As a mother," she said, her gaze momentarily distant, "I understand how crucial it is to nurture our children's well-being. This is not just about policies or programs. It is about creating a world where every child feels valued and supported." Her message resonated with many in the room, and several reporters nodded in agreement. But not everyone was convinced. At the back of the room, James Corbin leaned forward in his chair, a sly smirk playing on his lips. He had been waiting for the perfect moment to pounce, and as Melania paused to take a sip of water, he seized his opportunity. "Mrs. Trump," he called out, his voice sharp and cutting through the room like a blade. "You speak about advocating for children now, but during your time as First Lady, you remained notably silent on several issues that directly impacted families and children. How do you reconcile that silence with your current advocacy?" The room froze. All eyes turned to Melania, the tension palpable. For a moment, she didn't respond. Her hands rested lightly on the edges of the podium, her expression unreadable. The cameras zoomed in, capturing every flicker of emotion on her face, or lack thereof. Finally, she spoke, her voice calm but laced with a subtle edge. "Mr. Corbin," she began, her gaze locking onto his, "it is easy to criticize from the outside. It is easy to construct narratives that serve your agenda. But let me ask you this. How many families have you truly helped with your words? How many lives have you improved with your headlines?" Her words hung in the air like a challenge. The room was silent, save for the faint clicks of cameras capturing the moment. Corbin opened his mouth to respond but found himself momentarily speechless. Melania didn't wait for him to recover. She continued, her voice gaining strength. You assumed that my silence meant I was indifferent. Silence does not always mean ignorance or apathy. Sometimes, silence is the only option when the noise around you becomes too loud. Behind closed doors, I fought battles you will never know about. I made choices that were right for me and my family. I focused on what I could control and left the rest to others. If that does not meet your expectations, then that is your burden to bear, not mine. The reporters exchanged glances, their pens poised but hesitant. It was rare to see Melania speak with such candor, and the weight of her words seemed to shift the atmosphere in the room. Corbin, regaining some of his composure, tried to interject. But Mrs. Trump, surely you must understand. Melania raised a hand, cutting him off with a gesture that was as graceful as it was commanding. Mr. Corbin, I understand far more than you think. And since you are so concerned about truth, perhaps you should examine your own actions. How often do you write with the intent to inform rather than to provoke? How often do you consider the impact of your words on the people you write about, their families, their children? Her voice softened slightly as she added, I am not here to debate the past. I am here to focus on the future, on the work that needs to be done. The Serenity Foundation is not about addressing criticism or rewriting history. It is about helping children who need support now. If you choose to focus on anything else, that is your choice, but it will not deter me from my mission. The room was utterly silent now. Even Corbin, who prided himself on his ability to rattle his subjects, seemed at a loss for words. Another reporter raised her hand tentatively. Mrs. Trump, she asked, her voice cautious, do you see your foundation as a way of creating a legacy separate from your time in the White House? Melania turned to her, her expression softening. My work has always been separate from politics, she said firmly. As First Lady, I focused on initiatives that I believed could make a difference, and I am continuing that work now. My legacy is not defined by my title or my position. It is defined by the impact I have on the lives of others. The Serenity Foundation is about addressing a need that I see in our society. That has always been my priority, and it always will be. The press conference continued with more questions about the foundation's funding, partnerships, and future plans. Melania answered each question with poise, steering the conversation back to her mission. But the earlier exchange with Corbin had left an indelible impression on everyone in the room. As the event came to a close, Corbin approached Melania privately, his usual bravado replaced by a rare moment of humility. Mrs. Trump, he said, his voice quieter than usual, I may not agree with everything you've done, but I respect how you handled yourself today. Melania regarded him for a moment, her expression unreadable. Then, to his surprise, she extended a hand. Thank you, Mr. Corbin, she said simply. Perhaps next time, you will ask questions with the intent to understand, not to accuse. With that, she turned and walked away, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor. Corbin watched her go, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. Outside, the city was bathed in the warm glow of a setting sun, the skyscrapers casting long shadows over the bustling streets. Melania stepped into her waiting car, her thoughts still lingering on the events of the day. She knew the challenges were far from over, there would always be questions, criticisms, and attempts to define her on others' terms. But today she had taken a stand. As the car drove through the city, Melania gazed out the window, watching the skyline blur into the horizon. She felt a sense of resolve. Her past would always follow her, but it would not define her. She was charting her own path now, one that was guided by purpose and conviction. And as the city faded into the distance, one thing was clear, Melania Trump was more than the public figure the world thought they knew. She was a woman of resilience, strength, and quiet determination, ready to face whatever lay ahead.